Welcome to Comic Construction. I'm talking design versus production budget because reviewing the Nightwing Year One 20th Anniversary Deluxe Edition inspired me to do it. As you'll recall, the 20th Anniversary Deluxe Edition of Nightwing Year One is a very production heavy and design heavy book. So we're going to compare it and contrast it with Robin Year One Deluxe Edition, which is design heavy but not so much production heavy. So starting with the dust jacket, the Nightwing dust jacket is printed on a glossy sheet, and then there's a dull coating over this illustration of Robin. On that one wouldn't be that hard to do, but all of the text is punched out, meaning that it doesn't have that dull coating on it, so it's shiny. So that's some work. That would be an extra layer on this file. But the back cover, where all of that line work is coated, well, it's not coated, it's actually showing the actual gloss, means that all of the negative space, all of the space between the black had to have been drawn out so that the printer would know not to apply the coating to that. That's a lot of work. It'd be very timely. Now, if the designer is a staff designer, then it's minimal cost. But if you're paying like a freelancer or an agency to do that, that would be a lot of time. The Robin dust jacket is just all glossy. It's actually a thicker page as well. It's probably going to do a better job of protecting the book. So that's a huge production difference. Time alone on the Nightwing one. There will also be extra cost based on the fifth color, which is the dull coat. So that could result in like extra setup time for the printer. They would have to reconfigure the press for a fifth color. Then there's the cost of the actual dull coat that they were using. Some is more expensive than others. So that could really impact the book in meaningful ways. Now looking at the covers, they're both, heavily designed. Robin is just this really cool black and white illustration over a yellow background. It's really a minimalist kind of design, but that's playing into Javier Pulido's art. Whereas we get this classic drawing by Scott McDaniel of Nightwing. And on this one, they added that yellow dot pattern to make it look vintage. So the cost of doing both of these, probably not that much different. And then the end sheets, you do have more effort in reducing or scanning in probably a black and white illustration. So that's probably not too much work. Adding the dot pattern wouldn't be that difficult. And the paper stock is pretty much the same. They're both using a semi-gloss, fairly thick stock. So how does the budget come into this, right? So like Robin would be cheaper to produce. You're looking at about the same amount of work on design between the two. A little less on Robin, actually, just because your end sheets are just black. So you didn't have to line up any of that stuff. There is some, design work that went into these early pages. But the same amount of effort and time probably went into setting up these pages, the same pages in the Nightwing book. So that's a wash. The actual design is a wash. But the dust jacket would be much more expensive on the Nightwing book. Now, as a result, possibly as a result, I can't know this for sure, but the Robin book does have sewn binding. So by saving the money that was probably put into some of the production costs on the Nightwing book, the Robin book gets a better binding, meaning the Robin book will last longer. The Nightwing book, at some point, that glue's going to fail and pages will start to fall out. My biggest concern with glued binding on hardcovers is when they're, especially when they're glued to a ribbon, because then you've got, I don't know, like that connection never really seems to work out that well in my experience. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're using the perfect binding they're using in this one might be a notch and glue sort of affair, which is a little better. But I always feel better when I see that a binding is sewn. So ultimately, you could choose. You have to balance your budget, right? So like, if design is the same in both books, then where are you going to spend your budget for production, right? Would you rather have like a more durable book with a sewn binding, which is more premium, or do you want, to really go all out on the dust jacket, which, to be fair, is the first thing a person's going to see in a store, and that could be very premium looking and maybe that'll get the sales. That's a decision that has to be made, probably by salespeople, maybe an editor. I'm not really sure. But there are all these trickle effects that happen, and that's like the big balance that you have to maintain. Another option is if you're doing if you're really going off on like the dust jacket and doing all these like crazy sort of techniques that get expensive, you can reduce the quality of your paper. These are using the same paper, so I think the actual books probably cost about the same to make other than the binding. And then I do believe that the difference is probably made up in the dust jacket. And just for reference, Robin is 2018, and that's so that would be pre-COVID, $34.99. The Nightwing book came out at $29.99, that's post-COVID. So I think they probably could have charged $5 more per book and given you a better binding and still have all of the really cool bells and whistles on the design of the covers. Or they could have just matched this book more closely, especially if you want this year one to feel as part of a series, right? Because you have Batgirl Year One, Robin Year One, and then Nightwing Year One are kind of the Year One series. These are all the decisions they have to make. And then one note that I thought about since yesterday when I did the previous video about Nightwing, I think it's interesting that they didn't do that dot pattern on the cover. So what happens is you've got that vintage dot pattern on the actual book cover, not on the dust jacket, and then they repeat it for the end sheets. So that makes the book feel like one. Oh wow, look at that. The glue's already kind of cracking. Awesome. And I've been very careful with this book. That's kind of unfortunate. But back to the dot pattern. So the dot pattern makes the end sheets in this book cover actually feel of one piece, but there's no dot pattern on here. So suddenly your dust jacket feels divorced from the rest of the book. Whereas on the Robin book, it's the same art style. It's even heavily graphic, right? There's a lot of yellow, and then the background's just black and red. So I feel like this feels more connected to the actual book than this one does. So that's just kind of my thoughts on looking at design versus production budgets. I hope you found this video entertaining and enlightening. Thanks for checking it out. If you found this video helpful, like it and share it with a friend. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel.